And as we kick off with Monday morning, we'd like to say good morning and thanks for joining us on yet another edition of Breakfast Central. Thank you very much to our viewers here in Nigeria and across the continent. We hope that you enjoy the next 2 hours with us as we discuss some of the big stories making headlines here in Nigeria and in other parts of the continent. I am Osaugi Ogbon.
And I am Olive Emodi, very happy to be back. And thank you to the team for holding the show down. It's been quite a challenging weekend here in Nigeria. Looking at some of the stories surrounding kidnapping, killing of military officers. These are some of the stories we're going to be looking at this morning. We also will be opening the phone lines, affording you the opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Before we get into the top stories for today, we have Adebola Adeduba joining us for Breakfast Headlines. Good morning, Adebola. Which would you say is the story that has caught your eye or that has bothered you the most in this weekend?
Well, let me start by greeting you. Good morning, Olive. Good to have you back. Good morning, Osauge. It's good to see you here again, another Monday morning. Going to the stories that caught my attention would be the attack on military personnel in Bayelsa State, in Delta State rather. I mean, this has happened before. I recall in 1999, where the military personnel went to intervene in a certain community there. They attacked them, killed some of them, and thereafter there was reports of reprisal attacks by the military, burning down notable facilities, in Bayelsa State. Also, I recall in 2001 in Benue State, where the military also intervened in a communal clash. They were killed, some of them were killed, and then the military, were reportedly, carried out reprisal attacks on the community, burning facilities there. While I in no way see these attacks on military personnel as less despicable, I also do not endorse, reprisal attacks by the military on communities where reportedly some of their men were killed. So that has got to be the story, shocking, me right now. For Nigeria, that's got to be the most shocking story for me.
Well, we're not exactly, the army hasn't come out to take responsibility for the alleged reprisal attacks. They're still reported as attacks being carried out by unknown persons. So we'd like to ask that citizens in Delta State, in the Uredi local government area, should please tweet at News Central TV to give us reports as to what exactly is going on. But good thing is we'll be having a security expert joining us much later on the show to share with us what they know so far and what Nigerians should expect regarding this.
Yeah, there's conflicting reports, and that's one thing that everyone needs to just be careful about. There's very conflicting reports as to, what exactly happened on Thursday, the 14th, I believe. And of course, the events that have, happened, after that day. There's been one story or the other, about what triggered it, who exactly these people are that attacked the military, what the military was doing there in the first place. It's, so I think everyone just needs to, be careful and, we will try to get, factual, information first of all as to what happened. I believe that our reporters on ground who are there, will be able to feed, back with some of the truth.
Just to add what's going on over there. A bit, Osauge, well, according to information I saw in the news, they were responding to a distress call by two communities in a clash. And so they went there to intervene, and then this led to the attack.
I've seen that,
that
but
again
even
is still subject to, because I've also seen a different report as well.
Yeah, so that's why I said that there's conflicting reports. A lot of them are speculative. That's, of course, the military's statement. That's a statement that they put out, that they're responding to a distress call. Even if, you would wonder why the military is responding to a distress call.
Exactly.
That should be the police. So there's many questions that need to be answered. There's certain things that, the army should not be getting itself involved with in the first place. But until we get, clearer information, it's going to be difficult. And another thing, that I thought to point out is how this one is making the news. So much news has been generated around this, so much energy. Because, of course, it's a very unusual thing to hear, this type of stories from the Niger Delta or from, the southern part of Nigeria mostly. And it's not comparing, other incidents that have happened in northern Nigeria or anything. It's completely wrong. But there's just so much that has been generated, so much, energy is generated from this. I'm hoping, that, it's also not blown beyond, proportion. And of course, there's proper investigations that are carried out. Whoever, of course, is responsible for those killings is, made to face the law. But we'll see, in the next couple of days how these things develop. Let's share with our viewers this morning what our top stories are. And of course, Breakfast Headlines comes up right next.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines here on News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba. We begin the news in Nigeria's South, where reactions have continued to trail the unprovoked killings of officers and soldiers attached to 63 Brigade at Okwama community in Ogeli South local government area of Delta State, South Nigeria. The Ovie of Ewu Robo Kingdom, His Royal Majesty Clement Ikolo, whose kingdom covers Okwama community, described the act as unpatriotic and called for a full-scale investigation into the matter. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu says the killers of the Nigerian army personnel who were on a peace mission in Delta State will not go unpunished. The president, who made this known in a statement he personally signed on Sunday, extended profound condolences to the families of the soldiers, their colleagues, and their loved ones. He said the Delta killings demonstrate the dangers faced by Nigerian servicemen and women in the line of duty. The leadership of both the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions have directed their members across universities and inter-university center campuses nationwide to withdraw services starting today. According to a memo signed by the National President of SANO, Muhammad Ibrahim, and the General Secretary of NASU, Peter Adeyemi, addressed to the branches of the unions dated Friday, March 15th, the 7-day industrial action is in fulfillment of the earlier threat and ultimatum issued to the government over the unpaid withheld salaries of their members. The National Human Rights Commission has blamed the abduction of 286 students and teachers from 2 schools in Kaduna on the failure of the federal policing system in Nigeria. The Commission's Executive Secretary, Anthony Ojukwu, in an interaction at Stakeholders Dialogue on State Police organized by the Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center in Abuja, said such a disaster could have been averted if the nation had not prioritized the protection of the elite and affluent in the society at the expense of the masses. We head to south of the continent, where South Africa's Home Affairs Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, says the department has no intention of destroying the tourism sector by forcing foreign nationals awaiting visa outcomes to leave the country. He was speaking at a media briefing on Sunday after the department came under fire for a circular that was issued in December, which instructed foreigners who had not received a response to the application to extend their stay by the end of last month to return to their home countries. The city of Cape Town has called on political parties to abide by the rules of the Independent Electoral Commission when posting their election campaign posters. The city said parties are only allowed to attach 1 election campaign poster per street poll. The European Union and Egypt have signed a €7.4 billion financial package to support the North African country, boost energy sales to Europe, and stem irregular migrant flows. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was joined in Cairo by leaders of Austria, Belgium, Cyprus, Greece, and Italy for the signing ceremony with Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. We begin our conversations in Benin City, the Edo State capital. Gunmen on Friday kidnapped the chairman of the Edo State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, Tony Aziegbemi, shortly after a meeting with the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki in Benin City. His abduction happened less than a month after the party's primary election was held ahead of the September 21st governorship election in the state.
According to the Edo State Police Command, rescue operations have commenced to ensure the release of Tony Aziegbemi. This is as the national leadership of the party demanded the immediate and unconditional release of Aziegbemi. The Edo State Communication and Orientation Commissioner, Chris Nehikhare, in a statement said that the government had stepped up surveillance and was collaborating with security agencies for the release of the kidnapped victim. Let's now bring in Tony Okonigene. He's a member of the Edo State PDP Executive Committee. Good Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. What do we know so far about the updates regarding the kidnap of Mr. Aziegbemi?
Good morning, yes.
Good morning. Did you hear me?
Well,
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm trying to get your question.
Okay, I was asking for an update regarding the case. Do we have any updates so far regarding the kidnap case of Mr. Tony Aziegbemi?
Well, I don't think there's anything new, apart from the fact that he has been kidnapped, and that there's nothing new. But I know that the state government, in collaboration with the security agencies, have said that they're on top of the situation, and but we have not had any positive news yet concerning it.
Is there a likelihood that, the kidnap is politically motivated, or is Edo State starting to have its rise in kidnap cases also? Is it maybe just, an unfortunate incident that, of course, happened to him? Or, for those who might say it's politically motivated, is there any truth to that?
Well, if anybody that's familiar with Edo State, you will know that of recent, especially within the state capital, we've not been having such cases of kidnapping within the metropolitan Benin capital. This one we know and we are aware that it must be a targeted something that is aimed at trying to give the government a bad name, government of the bad name. In order, and our major concern now is that we are praying for a safe release. We want to do anything that will jeopardize the security agencies in their investigations. So we are just having our fingers crossed and hoping that he's released unharmed, and so that he can reunite with his family.
As we count down to Edo State gubernatorial elections, are there concerns? I mean, you said that this seems targeted. Are there concerns that this might be something that will be a repeat incident? And I ask this because we're starting to see insecurity becoming a norm in other parts of the country. So are the citizens of Edo State worried that as we prepare for the elections, this might be something that might happen more than once? All right. It would seem that the network is, of course, giving us issues. We're not unaware of what's happened with internet service providers around the country, around the continent. We hope that we can be able to navigate these murky waters before the cables are fixed. But yes, there are many, I mean, even in the way that the story is being reported, when they say that this happened, because that was the first thing I thought. Why is it reported as this happened barely 1 month after the elections, and of course mentioning that he was on his way from meeting the governor? It would seem that many people do think that it is politically motivated. I read the account of his driver stating that he had noticed that they were tailing them, and after a while he tried to take a different turn, and when he did, just as he was about to get over a speed bump, they blocked them from the front and behind, and then asked his boss to come down, took the boss into another vehicle, into their vehicle, drove with his car for a distance, and then left the car at some point. So it's just very sad to see that what this still tells us is that we have not even an underlying, a major challenge with insecurity. Yeah. Whilst whether it's targeted or not targeted, insecurity is a problem that we have to deal with. And even state governors have to be prepared when they're coming into office to understand that this is something that they most likely will deal with when they come into office.
I agree with that, and but like he said, there's still no clarity, with regards what has happened here. The accusations, the allegations that it's politically motivated. Would that point fingers to internal wranglings with the PDP in the state or with the other political parties? Is there aspects, that of course, he's been involved with that we're not aware? These are some of the things that we hope that, the police investigations will reveal or will expose. I'm hoping that it's at least able to expose as much as that, and of course, first of all, hoping that he is released as quickly as possible. There's proper investigations, and maybe those people who carried out this act, are arrested. These are some of the things that, we need to hope for. But while we're, looking at those, we'll probably need to also, hope that we can get deeper information.
Absolutely.
Can you hear us, sir?
I think I'm back on.
Okay, yes, you are.
I can hear you.
Yeah, we're still trying to, see what more information we can get from here. But of course, fingers crossed, and we hope that he is released, Mr. Aziegbemi is released as quickly as possible. I was just mentioning to my colleague now, the possibility, of course, or allegations that there might be internal wranglings in the PDP that might be leading to, things like this. So can you clarify, for us? Are there issues within the PDP in Edo State, or the other political parties that might give us hints as to what exactly has happened here?
We have always had issues, that's for sure. We have always had issues. Political parties have always had issues, but not resorting to such a state of kidnapping and going to this barbaric state. You see, that is why we are very, very careful not to raise unnecessary alarms, not to raise suspicions within the party, or not to turn this thing into a political, to score cheap political points. That's why some of us are very, very aghast and embarrassed.
Right. Yet again, the network has proven to be difficult. We hope that we can have him safely released and brought back to his family and to the people of Edo State. But more importantly, that a thorough investigation is conducted in this issue, in this particular kidnap case, to ensure that we can see where the loopholes were from, if this was targeted, if this wasn't targeted, just to ensure that the people of Edo State can go to bed feeling more relaxed, feeling safe, not worried about a repeat incidents of kidnap. But thank you to our guests for joining us. We hope to be able to connect with you at a later time. More reactions continue to trail the killing of officers and soldiers attached to 63 Brigade at Okwama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State, South Nigeria. This time around, it's coming from the OVA of Ewurobo Kingdom, His Royal Majesty Clement Ikolo Urukpe I, whose kingdom covers Okwama community. Speaking to newsmen, the monarch described the act as unpatriotic and called for a full-scale investigation into the matter.
Really a very, very sad time. And my heart is really saddened. These military men, they are people who are there to protect our nation. They should be held in high esteem. They are there to protect us from people who are there to invade and or to commit heinous crimes. It is very sad that these same people who are there to protect us, who are one of us, that this kind of heinous crime will be carried out and they will be killed in the process. It is very, very sad. It is disheartening. I totally condemn it. It is unacceptable. And to crown it up, one of them who has been killed in the process is somebody who put in all he could at the time of my presentation of staff of office sometime in November last year. He was very supportive. He stood firmly by me. I'm short of words. May their souls and the souls of the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. I sympathize with this family. I sympathize with these families.
The Okwama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State, where the 16 soldiers were killed, parts of it have been razed. According to the General Officer Commanding 6th Division Nigeria Army, Major General Jamil Abdulsalam, a manhunt for the killers is still ongoing, and some arrests have also been made by the soldiers. Residents of the coastal community are said to have fled to neighboring Ughelli for fear of a reprisal attack by the soldiers who have been seen patrolling the creeks. Now, before we bring in our guest this morning, let's also speak to our correspondent, Austin Azu, who is live in Delta State for us this morning. Good morning, Austin.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. There's a lot of speculating, going on. Many people are still very, very unsure of what is happening or what has happened in the last couple of days in Ughelli. But I mean, you're currently on ground, so let's start first of all by asking what's the current reality on ground there in Okwama community, and of course, what have you heard?
Austin, are you there with us?
Austin, can you hear us?
All right, seems we're having difficulties trying to connect with Austin. Austin, we're not able to hear you. I would think it's the network challenge. Can you maybe please exit and rejoin again? And whilst we're trying to make connections with Austin, just to clarify that there have been several speculations as to what exactly has happened. Whilst on the one hand, the Defense Headquarters has of course released a statement, and the government is saying that these officers were, they were out to answer a distress call. They were on a peacekeeping mission when they were unfortunately being attacked and have now been killed. There are other reports about them having to, go and sort out a certain kidnap of an Anthony. But there's just a lot of sides to this story that has spread on social media, and we're hoping to have our correspondent give us the correct perspective. He's joining us live from Delta State. I would like to try again. Austin, are you there with us? If yes, please go ahead. What exactly happened? Okay.
Well, it's
all
a
right.
continuous struggle. But,
yeah.
We, of course, will continue to see how much information we can get from Delta State this morning, from people who are there, and, of course, those who, know bits and pieces. It's also important to advise at this point, that everyone should please wait for credible information and not, speculate. The scenes that we're currently, of course, what we're showing there, we saw over the weekend are not anything that anybody should be excited about houses being razed and all of that. That's really nothing that anyone should be excited about. And I don't know that we should also just sit back and watch and say, okay, well, it was expected that houses will be burnt. What we accept, sort of as normal, is really, or should really always be condemned. I'm also hoping that we can hear from the governor of Delta State this morning.
Yes.
Because I mean, he really, should be on top of these issues. He should be on ground and, ensure that there is peace being maintained. I mean, that's what you would expect
because
from
this
him.
is not the norm in Delta State. It's not something that people are used to seeing, that, there was an attack on military officers and, these soldiers and police officers were killed. It's not the norm. Some people would then say that it comes sometimes as a bit of a shock to a number of these governors who probably are not prepared for this level of insecurity or this level of chaos, I would say, because it's not a good picture. It's not a pretty picture. We're not quite sure exactly what is going on. But yes, we certainly look forward to hearing a clear statement from the government, from the governor of Delta State. We're hoping to see him on ground, in these communities. As in seeing him would sort of certainly bring a level of peace and calm. Maybe not restore calm completely, but,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a role that he should be able to play, It could be a peacemaker, role. It could really also just be to calm the community down,
Yes.
in a situation.
I mean, just
like
when he
this.
makes it feel like, okay.
There should be that, while, of course, they search for the perpetrators of this act and investigate properly what could have caused it. Austin, can you hear us?
Fantastic. Yes, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead. What's the situation on ground currently, and what have you heard, that may have happened in the last week?
Okay, there we have. It's a struggle to get through to Austin, but we're hoping that before the show ends, before we end this conversation, we can bring him back again to share with us his expert or his opinion or not really his opinion, basically what the citizens are saying. Let's now bring in security expert and managing director, PR24 Risk Management Consulting, Nehikhare Adekoya. He joins us virtually from Maiduguri, Borno State. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, I think the first question would be your initial reaction, your thoughts when you heard this. What came to your mind?
That's a very tough.
Please go ahead.
That's a very tough question. Firstly, I think that we've lost as a society every sense of value of human life. whether on the part of the community in question or even the clamor from certain circles in law enforcement, particularly those with a background in military, calling for a leveling of the community as would be, shows a disturbing state of our national psyche. And then it highlights the color of the problem that we face as a country. So my heart first goes out to the families of everyone who's involved, who has lost a loved one on the parts of the soldiers, the communities. It's a very sad one for Nigeria. So that's my first reaction is one of shock and disbelief, because I know what it takes to train an officer to the point of becoming a lieutenant colonel. And where you have a lieutenant colonel, two majors, one captain, perhaps the battalion adjutant, with other soldiers involved, it's a great loss. The bigger problem is that we are suffering an attrition of able-bodied fighting trained officers in this country. Nigeria cannot continue to sustain this level of loss. We cannot, as a nation that wants to be taken seriously in West Africa and Africa. So it's a very sad one, if you ask me.
Right.
Okay, well, a good thing that you started with, condemning those who, of course, are calling for a leveling of those areas and for the army to give them hell. I've seen a couple of those statements on social media, and they're just really heartbreaking, seeing that we still think in that manner. Also, a couple of people still think like that. But what level of investigation do you think must occur here? These attacks aren't very common in parts of the Niger Delta region. It's also not known to be an area that is that maybe has terrorists or bandits or Boko Haram or anything. So what level of investigation do you think should occur here? And is it also important to question the presence of the army even in civil issues, because the military's statement says that they went on a peacekeeping mission, or I'm not sure exactly what word they used.
They were responding to internal crisis.
Yes, exactly. They were responding to
crisis between the
crisis.
command, yeah.
So should they even be there in the first place? Shouldn't that be the job of the police? Just share with us.
Yeah, so there are a number of very tough questions that needs to be asked. First of all, just to make a statement on the impression given that that part of the Niger Delta is not known for such incidents. That may not be completely correct. We know for a fact that areas around the creeks have armed militants. And when I say armed, you have people who are dangerously armed to the teeth. So those areas, in terms of security risk mapping, we call them high risk austere areas. And when you see the military going with about 16 soldiers, 12 soldiers, 4 officers, that also shows you that some level of thought was taken in going into the area and preparing for the potential risk in the areas. So that's first on the environment. The next question is on, of course, you know where I stand on the issue of civil leadership. Firstly, I think it's an affront on civil authority. It's an affront on our sensibilities as Nigerians to hear the military say that they went there on a peacekeeping mission. It's very sad, and it shows you again the problem with our country. The military should be the agency of last resort, not first resort. And I keep making the point that we can't keep putting our best foot, that we should put last first. You can't do that, because once you go beyond the military, you have nothing again, because the military is the institution that ensures the territorial integrity of the country, particularly from external threats. In this case, as it reads, 2 communities hosting Nigerian citizens and indigenes are squabbling. You don't send the military to resolve those issues. What happened to the police? What happened to the community leadership? What happened to the state governor in this case? What happened to religious and thought leaders? What happened to asking these people to report to a neutral location where you can mediate? Because once you send in combatant soldiers in camouflage, fully armed, the presupposition of neutrality goes out of the window. So I think that the Nigerian Army must take strong operational lessons from this. It's an abnormality, it's an aberration. It should not be that two communities. We saw this in the Plateau when the Chief of Army Staff went there. And again, I question, why would the Chief of Army Staff be doing push-ups to motivate the troops over two communities squabbling? The military has no business in these matters. And we are sacrificing the lives of men. So I said in my write-up to some people within the security sector that it is because we have a system that pitches the people against their army and the army against the people they took an oath to protect. That system is at the heart of the problems that we have, not the symptoms we are addressing. Because it's not just Zaki Biamoti or this community in question. We've had in recent history more than 10 cases. We've had cases where brigadier generals have been killed, major generals killed. We've had cases where 62 officers have been killed. Every day in this country, soldiers are dying. It costs the federal government a lot of money to train and get soldiers ready for the primary responsibility, not of internal security, but of protecting and keeping the territorial integrity of Nigeria intact.
So, I mean, I'm glad that you've shared with us the rules of engagement when it comes to internal crisis. So who then do we say should bear the responsibility of answering to the people of Nigeria as to why the army had to be the one to respond as against the police? And you've just shared with us the numerous cases where, unfortunately, these gallant military men have been killed. So who are we to hold accountable? Who are we to expect a response from?
I must try to control my emotions, really, because whatever causes Nigeria to lose 4 senior officers, as we just did, should call for a thorough investigation. And that doesn't mean that I demean in any way the lives of the soldiers lost. But again, when you engage the military, you must accept that there's a certain level of risk that you could lose men. But I have a question. You have a lieutenant colonel, 2 majors, 1 captain. That looks like the battalion leadership all in one place. Doing what? What exactly was the mission? What exactly was the end state that was being worked on? Who gave the instruction for the military to go in and why? There's a doctrine of force continuum that says that you must apply force as force becomes necessary. So we need to see, and I hope that the investigation will show the pyramid of escalation. How that, there was some gradualism to the point where it became completely necessary for the military to go in. When you said the military was now the last resort and they had to go in, the military can never be in this context where 2 Nigerian communities are squabbling, the broker of peace. They are civil institutions empowered by law to keep the peace in internal security, not the military. Again, I complain personally of what I see as the excessive domestication of the military. I was watching a video the other day. I saw military men dressed in camo providing escorts for a celebrity. I said in the opening statement that there's a problem with our national psyche. We have a problem. Time it was, you send I shouldn't say just, because a captain is an officer. 1 captain and some soldiers, just the presence of the soldiers alone, all parties will just dissipate. But you send in the military, whether it is in the south or in the north or in the north central, once the people see the military, they become hostile.
And I agree with you, Mr.
Because
Nehikhare. I completely agree with you.
They think and assume that the other party has gone to call in the military against them.
Right. So now, in this situation, who should we expect a response from? Should we say that we should expect a response from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces? Is there someone else that the Nigerian people have to expect a response from?
The investigation should, the GOC responsible for that axis, whose area of responsibility that area is, even up to the Chief of Army Staff, the investigation should cover that much. And then we see what we find from the investigation. I expect that investigators will be thorough. But importantly, what I want to see is us drawing operational lessons. If we lose a colonel or a general at war, no problem. It's even a problem, but it's okay. It's part of the problems of war. But this issue where every other day in Nigeria, senior officers are dying, it's a waste of life. So that investigation will be thorough, I hope. There's a clear failure of civil leadership because, again, sometimes in the military or in the security force, you are told sometimes to take initiative. So was this an initiative of the battalion commander? We are not sure. Was he directed to go there by the state governor? We are not sure. What we know is that the communities complain. If the communities complain, why sending the soldiers first? Why? And I think that the military should begin to draw lessons from this. The military has to stay out of the fray. They are the people's army. The military should never be drawn against or drawn to community conflicts or clashes between citizens of this country. The military has no business doing that. The military should stay afloat and stay above the fray.
Yeah. So obviously there's still, the likelihood of, internal politics being played, that involve security agencies, including the military, in these parts of the country. And, like you've mentioned, they seem to be getting themselves involved in things that really they have no business with. I hope that there's a proper investigation. The head of the Division 6, I believe, and the head of that command, maybe needs to answer some of all these questions. Because somebody needs to be held, accountable for the loss of these lives, not just the people who murdered them. But also speak a little bit more about the role of the governor now, and also how can we demilitarize these places? You said they are high intensity or high risk areas. How can we demilitarize these parts of the country from these people who these militants who have high caliber weapons that really just control those areas? Can we continue like that?
Not an easy question, but again, I always say that matters of security, you cannot exhaust it in one sitting. We have structural problems with internal security in Nigeria. The biggest problem, which is why you have the lack of control, and you have the fact that security forces, as currently constituted, are not able to fully dominate their area of responsibility. It is because the problems we have are widely dispersed, they are hydra-headed, significantly intertwined in geopolitical considerations, geopolitical and ethnic considerations. Just case in point, this matter has happened and people are saying, but soldiers died in the north. They didn't ask them to level the place. That's not even relevant to the question. The bigger question is, why did the military go there first? And then we talk about the loss of life. So there are structural issues, internal issues that breed some of these problems. For example, if we say we had state police, the first responders would have been the state police. Where the state police could not handle, the tactical squad of the police would now respond at the state central command. Where that cannot handle that, then you can call in the federal police. In classifications of different crimes, some crimes will be classed as federal crimes. Then you can get the federal police, and then you have the civil defense coming. Where the civil defense, state police, federal police cannot handle, then the military would come in. But if you had the first line of contact as a state police, that will give the military the respite to become more professionalized. We are looking at a Kenya, for example, that is talking about being fully defense sufficient, being able to produce all the weapons that they need locally and internally. Nigeria, as of today, is not even able to produce the required level of munitions that we need, even internally, let alone begin to professionalize the army properly. So the army is over-encumbered. And sometimes when you're under so much pressure, you get yourself involved in some knee-jerk reaction. So there are structural issues. You take the security side out, you then look at the macroeconomic, social, economic issues, the issues of the agitations of those communities, the issues of poor and lack of good governance in some of those remote communities where people don't feel the presence of governance or good government. Issues that the subnational should address, that they wish to abdicate to the national government, under the guise that the exclusive list is jam-packed with what the federal government has to do. So you look at a mix of social, economic, geopolitical, ethno-religious issues in the cocktail that makes Nigeria a very convoluted society, difficult to manage. So all these issues mixed together creates a bit of a haze. If you say, oh, it's just the two communities clashing, why would they take it out on the army? There are other issues, there are structural issues. So the issues are many. And I think that what I want to see, as I keep saying, is that I want to see these presidents have a sit down with the governors, provide them all the enablements to ensure and see to it that the subnational governments take full responsibility for their internal security. The president must exceed this sin. Exceed it, I mean, completely.
Right.
Issues on the concurrent list should be issues that the federal government will provide guidance and leadership over, not issues they begin to implement.
Okay, let's talk about the burning and the raising of these communities. First of all, just to once again reiterate that our thoughts and our prayers are with the families of those who have lost the loved ones in these attacks, to the military men who were murdered. It's an unfortunate situation, and we do hope that there will be thorough investigation so that their death is not in vain. But then there's been reports about attacks on these communities. We've heard that a number of them have fled the communities because of fear of reprisal attacks. We've been seeing pictures and videos of buildings burning. We're not quite sure. There are several reports as to who exactly is carrying out the attacks. While some say it's unknown sources, others believe it's reprisal attacks carried out by the military. Is that something to, is that an area to consider? Do you have information regarding that? And is this something we should be worried about? I mean, you did mention about OD and Zaki Biam. Is this something that we should actually be afraid of or worried about?
I do believe that those communities have reason to worry because whilst I can vouch for the discipline of the officers of the Nigerian army, we are all human beings and blood is rushing through our veins. So there is that distinct possibility that, particularly if your commander is loved and loved by his people, that there may be cases where, where the relationship between the Nigerian army and the community becomes very difficult. Let me just put it like that. So it's now incumbent upon the army to take steps to ensure that discipline is maintained. As to who may be conducting this act, I wouldn't want to go into the conjectures of who did what, since the facts are not known. A number of people could be interested parties. There could be parties that want to exacerbate this crisis. There could be parties that want to exert as much political toll as they can from this ugly incident. There could be a number of interested parties, as we have seen even in the Southeast, where you have multiple actors, unknown gunmen, and the rest. So there could be different parties. It could be also rogue elements also, wanting to exert some level of penance. So I don't know. I don't know, but it behoves the Nigerian army to, again, like I said, stay above the fray, maintain discipline, and ensure that their soldiers and officers maintain the decorum expected of people who swear an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and to allow the laws that we are all subscribed to take its course. And I don't have any doubts that the army, under the leadership of the Chief of Defense Staff, would uphold the standards expected of the military, no matter how painful it is. We must go beyond this issue, draw operational lessons from it, avoid the mistakes of the past. And again, just to digress a bit, I'd always say that the military should now begin as an active policy to support the funding and equipping of the police, the creation of state police, because even the military needs the police. There are a number of military officers who are kidnapped in transit across the country. Military barracks have been attacked. So without the police protecting the societies in which the barracks are hosted, even the military themselves are under some threat. So I'm urging very senior colleagues in the military, who I have very significant respect for, to begin now, because when we talk about security, in Erodo, we assume that the military houses the knowledge for security. But there's a difference between public safety, public order, and stateside defense, which I do hope that our knowledge of security would increase and improve to the point where we appreciate the difference. You can be a combatant and not an expert in public safety or public order. And I do hope that the military will begin to push this civil leadership in security. Let the military exit, as an active policy, professionalize and stay above the fray, and stop getting themselves involved in some of these condescending actions, as I like to call them.
We, of course, would see what the next few days are able to unravel. We, of course, will continue to encourage peace. We hope that the government and the governor of the state also steps in, and plays the part that he's meant to play at a time like this. Nehikhare Adekoya, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for your very brilliant analysis always. Looking forward to another conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, away from security stories, let's take the conversation to Lagos State, where Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has given a nod for the commencement of the Ounje Eko food markets across the state yesterday. The markets have been tasked with selling discounted food items across the 5 divisions of Lagos. The food items include rice, beans, garri, bread, eggs, tomatoes, and pepper, among others, and they are to be sold at a 25% discount to residents. News Central's Bettina Nweli was at the market yesterday, and here's her report.
Following the announcement by the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu that the Ounje Eko food market will begin sales of food items at discounted prices in the 5 divisions of the state today, Sunday, March 17. According to the governor, the Sunday Markets initiative was aimed at cushioning the effect of the high cost of living in the country. Expectedly, Lagosians wasted no time in flooding the various locations to buy food items at friendly prices.
We have garri, we have eggs, we have onion, we have beans, we have rice, and we have pepper and tomatoes.
What delayed us today is due to the traffic of the block terminal bridge. They have to go through Maryland traffic, so the vendors came late. So the people that came to buy the market were really complaining. But we promised them next week they will get more better than this.
Governor Sanwo-Olu had stated that the food markets would operate exclusively on Sundays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. across 57 locations in the state. The first wasn't without its hitches, as some of the food vendors turned up late. For Lagosians who turned up to take advantage of the initiative, it was a welcomed development. However, some complained that the 25% discount was not significant enough.
Lagos is working and they are trying, but it's not yet enough. They have to put more effort. Like what they are offering us now, it won't go more than how many days? Only 5 kg, 5,325 for 5 kg. The price is a bit fair, but the quantity is not enough. How many days will we consume this?
Ọlọ́run ṣeun tó bá tiẹ̀ ń wà báyìí ó bẹ́tà ó sàn ju rárá lọ torí oúnjẹ ebi ń pa àwọn èèyàn nínú ìlú ní gbogbo ìlú ebi ń pa àwọn èèyàn ṣùgbọ́n eléyìí tán bá tiẹ̀ ṣe báyẹn tó kárí á tún dínkù.
We even thought being an elite area they won't respond so much. Even elites are here.
Against the reality of the current harsh economic situation, it is apparent that patronage of the Onje-Eko food market will steadily increase in the coming weeks and months. As such, the onus now lies with the government to fine-tune the process, make it as seamless as possible, and ensure the usual corruption that rubbishes government initiatives do not hamper this one. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nweli.
Thank you very much, Bettina, for that report. I wish I had known about this much earlier. I probably should have been there myself doing some shopping. I think it's a great initiative by the Lagos State government, 25% discount, yes, and it's very easy for many people to jump into the obvious statement that it's not enough, the government should do better. But I think that when the government starts to make efforts, no matter how little, it's important to applaud them. I think this is great because what this typically means was, I don't know that rice has gotten to 100,000, but let's imagine that rice is 100,000 a bag. Rather than buy it at 100,000 at Onje-Eko, you buy it for 75,000. So I think that that's something that's good. It will help.
It definitely will, but and of course, like you started, commend the state government for doing this in the first place. I'm hoping that more and more people get to be aware of it, and take advantage of it, to buy cheaper food stuff. Even if when the thing that you call cheaper food stuff isn't necessarily still cheaper.
Why'd you say that?
Because if we look at where we were last year, this same time last year and where we are today, 25% is the increment and the inflation in food prices is way more than 25%.
And I hear you.
You're not really shaving off much. You're only just taking off a little bit because I bought a kilo of turkey yesterday for 8,500 naira for a kilo of turkey. Yeah. So and this is
a crate of egg is 5,000 naira.
Okay. So if you take out 25% of that, it's still not the same price that it was a couple of months ago, and it's not because an earthquake happened in Nigeria.
So I hear you, but I think that it's also important that we deal with our current reality. Our current reality was not caused by the Lagos State governor on his own, right? It's a collective effort. It is the federal government that has questions to answer. So if states are starting to look within and seeing ways they can help make life easier for their citizens, I think that they should be applauded. In terms of food subsidy, transport subsidy.
I started by saying we should commend the Lagos State government for
so it is still cheaper because the reality is that right now, our reality in Nigeria is different. We have a completely different reality. We are going to keep hoping that in the nearest future, things would revert, maybe not to what they were before, but at least close to what they were. But if we're being honest, this is our reality, and we have to work with the facts that we have right now. Things are expensive.
Anyway, it's too long a conversation to get into. Commend the Lagos State government.
Thank you very much for joining us. If you're just tuning in, you're well in time for our newspaper reviews. And of course, this is the point where we open the phone line so you can call in and share your thoughts on any or all of the stories that we'll be looking at on the front pages. But let's begin this morning with the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, the big story, soldiers killing. Tinubu Senate order manhunt for killers. Troops come warring communities. President condemns attack, says DHQ, that's of course Defense Headquarters, has full authority to bring anybody responsible to justice. So this is something that a number of people had been sharing concerns about, saying this line of the president giving the Defense Headquarters full authority to bring anybody responsible to justice. I've seen a number of tweets that shared their concerns that what is the definition of full authority and what does it mean to, what would full authority entail? It's a bit of a concern for a number of civilians.
So there is that, but at the same time, it's once again, questioning why is the army getting involved with situations like this? So we, first of all, have made a mistake with having the army involving itself with alleged, civil cases. dispute between two communities. You should not have the army there in the first place. But now
and then you not only have the army, like you're having key players. Like
exactly,
key
a
leadership
major,
personnel.
a lieutenant colonel. I mean, there's things that you should just not have walking around like that. So after that mistake has been made, now you're asking the same defense headquarters, to once again go and fish out. They have no business. They should normally have no business with these issues. That's why there's, the Nigerian police force. So we're basically making the mistake twice. And then, what, like you've said, bring out anybody responsible. There's already a challenge with a certain militarized mentality that we still have, a certain dictatorial mentality that we still have. And that's why, we can look at those buildings burning and everyone would just assume that, oh, it must be the army carrying out reprisal attacks, which is complete madness. Because how does your army, how do people just accept that it's, okay, yeah, the army must have gone back there to carry out reprisal attacks. And then people are even saying that, oh, I hope all the youths in town have left too, because, when the army comes back, it's good. Those things are not normal. Yeah. And we should never have these things be normal.
I think another perspective, which I just want to further highlight, you did say that, you touched on it, saying that the same, a mistake had been made earlier, and now you're asking the army to also investigate, meaning that they shouldn't have been there in the first place. But then, based on the Latin principle of, I'm going to quote it in Latin. It says, "Nemo judex in causa sua," meaning a party cannot be a judge in its own cause. Yeah. There's obviously going to be sentiment. It's why there's going to be conflicts of interest. At this point, their people, their leaders have been killed. So there's going to be a level of emotion that is not necessary to be able to conduct an unbiased investigation. If it's why they will say, oh, as a judge, you shouldn't have your family members appearing in your court, because there's a certain level of emotion that might, in a way, impact your judgment. So it's important that maybe a committee should be set up to investigate properly. An independent committee that is not the military, an independent security outfit should investigate what happened and bring feedback. Senate retired generals, others fume, demand tough actions against killers, condole with military. And yes, again, we must mention that these military officers who have been killed, that those who killed them were not in any way excusing what was done to them. It was terrible. These are the people that every day put their lives on the line to defend Nigeria's territorial integrity from external aggression, and so they do not deserve to be killed in the way that they were killed without respect and in such an inhumane way. So we want to get to the root of it. We need answers for the military. We need answers for the people. As citizens of Nigeria, we demand answers. Consumers lament POS machine shortage at Lagos discounted food markets. And this is, of course, what we just talked about before we came. Onje Eco, the 25% discount markets that Lagos State has started. And they're talking about POS machine shortage. I'm hoping that in the next week or in the coming ones, there will be adequate provision for that. Senate warns against supplementary budgets, excess loans. Abducted editor's wife cries for help, says husband easygoing. This is sad. I don't know. I haven't seen this one yet. Did you see about the abducted editor? We're not. We still have one or two more papers on the Punch. One or two more stories that we're taking on the Punch newspaper. We still have their textile imports. 7 others gulp 1.4 trillion naira after CBN ban lift. And at the top of the paper, federal government plans talks with Ghana, others to protect undersea cables. Strike SSANU, NASU vow to ground varsities, government feigns ignorance. We're back again. And federal government eyes $8 billion World Bank loans for IDPs agric. And that's all that we have this morning on the Punch newspaper. Let's move away from here to this Nigerian newspaper.
All right. Once again, a reminder to our viewers this morning, you can call the phone lines. They're active. Share your thoughts with us, on what's going on in in Delta State. And of course, the reaction of the Nigerian government so far, what your thoughts are generally about that very, very unfortunate incident. The phone lines are going to be on your screen in just a few seconds, so you could dial those numbers and speak with us this morning. On this Nigeria newspapers this morning, we have, of course, smoke out killers of 16 soldiers in Delta. Tinubu orders defense headquarters Distressed Okwama community in Ughelli, South Local Government area deserted. Villagers flee homes. Some suspects arrested, says of course, defense chiefs. Don't wipe out community, Femi Falana and others plead. Killings, abductions worsen as security spending rises. NASU, SANU begins 7-day warning strike today. We spoke about this sometime last week. We can also find on This Nigeria, refer Ningi's budget padding allegation to EFCC, ICPC. Serap charges Akpabio.
Do you think Akpabio is going to listen to this?
No, because of course, he can't be judge and jury in this case. He is one of those who is being fingered in this situation. Hardship. Churches distribute food items to members. Global economic grows at 3%, says the IMF. These are the major stories. Of course, Edo PDP chair abduction, kidnappers yet to contact family or associates. These are some of the major stories on This Nigeria. Again, the phone lines are going to be on your screen, so you can join the conversation.
I don't know if you took this story on about churches distribute food items to members. I don't know.
I just did, yes.
Oh, you did, okay.
So, it's in the same vein with the Onje Eco, yes, because everyone has gotten to see how much suffering is currently, the reality across, Nigeria. Even here in Lagos, there's almost no 10 meters that you're going to walk without seeing someone who's, seeking alms, trying to,
And they're not even begging for money as much as they're begging for food.
Yeah, everything. So yes, these are the major stories. Again, using language like smoke out killers and all of that. You're seeing a situation where distressed community members in Ughelli, South Local Government area, of course, people are fleeing that community. Villagers flee homes. You can see it right there. These aren't things that should be normal. For Femi Falana not to even have to say, you could look at the writer to the story there, don't wipe out community, Falana and others plead. It's just things that you should never expect to happen. As unfortunate as it is, as disastrous as it is, yes, we must talk about justice for these people who have been killed. We should not be living in a society where we expect that every person who lives in that community, the innocent ones who are going about their daily activities and their daily lives,
children and men,
everybody, women, children, dogs, chickens, everybody, who is innocent, who has no hand in any of all these things, would now be fearing for their lives because they know that there will be a reprisal attack.
And what's scary is the fact that even the seemingly educated, exposed intellectual individuals on social media are the ones that are calling for these communities to be leveled. It just shows us that are we really in a dire need of this unity that we often preach, this one Nigeria that we preach? Because one wrong has been done. Yes, let's fish out those who committed this crime. Fish them out, do your investigation, work hand in hand with the traditional rulers, with the community police, and find out exactly the perpetrators of this act and let them be made to face to the tune of the song that they have played. However, just outrightly, even putting it on social media and asking people to asking the military to level these communities is a reflection of how very, I don't know the exact.
It's a reflection of our thinking.
It's sad.
It's a reflection of our thinking and a reflection also of how insensitive we could be when we're not directly affected by certain things. The people who have made those wild statements now, people who do not live anywhere close to Delta State, who have no business with Delta State.
I'm not praying that this ever happens, but a clear imagination, a clear reflection of this would be, imagine that this happened in Lagos State, right? Imagine that for some reason, some military people were killed, right? Yeah. Will you go on social media? We will see the same people go on social media and say, level the whole of Lagos State.
Whole of Ajah.
It's very insensitive.
So once again, it's mostly those who are not going to be affected, and I think they should be ignored. But it's a reflection also of the kind of thinking that you would expect, and that's why
all or nothing thinking, very extremist point of view.
So if a person tweets that, right, that's their personal problem. Everybody can tweet at him and insult him or her, but when you also expect that it's not just that person tweeting that has that mentality, the fear really is there's people in government, there are people in the military, there are people that have that same mentality. That's the fear really, not some random person who's tweeting it.
If people in the military didn't have that, would have not had conversations about Odia and Zaki Biam. Anyway, let's move away from that to our next newspaper this morning. And just to mention, you can call in and react to any of the stories we've taken so far. Budget padding, Nigerians angry with lawmakers. Ex-legislators slam Senate. I got 1 billion naira for constituency projects, according to Senator Nwoko. Nigeria operating a faulty budgeting system. I think that's like old news. Everybody knows that at this point. Feels like what Nigeria is doing is copy and paste, and in some cases, copy-paste inflated budgets. It's not budgets that are thoroughly scrutinized. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Serap, CSOs, Dons demand investigation. Tinubu to CDS, bring killers of military personnel to justice. Disquiet in CBN as Cardozo retires Emefiele's directors. Interesting. NSITF to spend 12 billion on promotion, productivity, 25.6 billion naira on personnel, and finally, the warning strike by SSANU, NASU. They're shutting down universities nationwide today. And that's all that we can take this morning on the front page of the Daily Trust, and that's all the newspapers we're looking at this morning. When we come back, we'll be delving into more of the conversations regarding insecurity in Nigeria, looking especially at the over 300 kidnapped victims. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Before we get into the stories today, you will see that majority of the stories today in the news are talking about insecurity and revealing the unfortunate situation that we're dealing with as a country. But let's take one more newspaper just to remind you that you can call in. We know that there's been issues with the network, but please don't stop trying to call. Liquidity squeeze at Forex market to linger, says experts. Atiku Obi condemned killing of officers, soldiers in Delta, demand arrest of culprits. I haven't received any salary in 2 years, says Soludo. Soludo was trending yesterday. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
Retirement benefits. NJC denies requesting money from retired judges. NLMC assures Nigerians of data security. Again, gunmen attack Kaduna community, abduct 14 residents. Can these people even breathe? At this point, I don't even know what to say, but we'll come back to that. Let's just run through the headlines. Federal government begins nationwide mass metering project. Lagos FHA partner on affordable housing for Lagos residents and Nigerians in diaspora. Killing of soldiers in Delta, direct attack on Nigerians, according to Tinubu, gives military full authority to bring perpetrators to justice. Serap urges Akpabio to refer budget padding allegation to EFCC and ICPC. NASU, SANU commends 7-day warning strike. And just to look at here, the story, there's so many stories that stand out for me, Osalge. I think one of them would be the story about the Lagos and the Federal Housing Authority partnering on affordable housing for Lagos residents. I think that that's great news, but what will that look like? And because I'm really hoping that there's clarity and then there's transparency to exactly how they intend to go on with the federal housing, the affordable housing projects for Nigerians, because the only way in which we can ensure that we make life remotely bearable for Nigerians is if we can get, abroad, you would see that people buy houses and they don't have to pay an arm and a leg because they are deducting it from your salary over time. There's more provision for mortgage, is where people can change their cars, people can use different phones, and it's not basically an uphill task to be able to afford the basic necessities and the barest minimum. So I think that that's a laudable project, but it's important that we're sure that this is not hijacked by unscrupulous elements who will then, ensure that it's their own family and friends that will get access to it.
Yeah, but we don't know the details of this one exactly. If this is, mortgage arrangement or not. It says affordable housing.
What is the definition of affordable?
Exactly. What's the definition of affordable? What was affordable 2 years ago is no longer affordable. Nobody can buy a car currently comfortably. The cars that used to be 4 million before, 3 million before, are currently selling for 9 to 11 billion. And that is not affordable for a lot of people because incomes did not increase. Salaries have not increased. It's pretty much the same salary scale. Yeah. But now, your what you can spend on, has reduced. The value of the naira has reduced drastically, and so those are details we probably need to find out. In the countries that you mentioned, they already have a finance structure that makes it easy for you to be able to afford these things. As long as you work, you'll be able to afford, accommodation. You'll be able to afford food. You'll be able to afford to pay your bills. But here, you're going to have to work, 3 or 4 different, gigs.
Jobs, yeah.
In order to be able to save up for rent and for your car and buy food and all of that. So it's, and it's not saying that it's necessarily rosy in those parts of the world, in the UK or in America. It's not rosy. There is still, of course, you need to work really, really hard. But if you work, you will,
yes.
yeah, exactly. You would.
You see the dividends of your work.
But here,
I mean, they would also complain about being taxed. And a response to this would be, yes, they've been heavily taxed. We're not denying that.
Yes,
but they are seeing the fruit of their tax.
I agree. Listen, I struggled, a bit this morning because we had electricity issues all through last night. And so I was waking up, at intervals. I woke up maybe 3 or 4 times all through the night. 1 a.m. at, 2:30, at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., just because of electricity issues. And that is me who pays my taxes. This is me who, of course, has units in my meter. So no matter how much, it is, if I need to get myself to a place where, okay, I'm able to afford 24 hours electricity, I would need to sell body parts and work extremely hard. But in those societies that you're speaking of, those things aren't even things that you even mention anymore because it's normal for them. And if they want to get a house, they want to get a new phone, they want to get a car, they just need to, work, and pay for it, every month. We don't have such here. And it's a structural issue. There's a lot of things that, need to happen. A quick reminder, that while we banter about the National Assembly and the issues in the National Assembly with the budget pardon allegations, with the suspension of Senator Ningi, with the allegations, of course, and the calls for the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, to investigate or to maybe even resign. While we have those conversations, and we also have conversations about what's going on in Delta State with the unfortunate attack on the military personnel that has led to the death of 16 of them. While we have these conversations, a quick reminder that there's still 300 Nigerians that are being held in captivity. And this is getting to more than a week or 2 weeks now since they were taken. The Nigerian government, of course, has not been able to take a very, very, urgent or drastic step to ensure their release. And these are Nigerian citizens that deserve to be catered to by the Nigerian government. And so these are some of the things that you would always, be able to point out and say, okay, what exactly am I paying my taxes for? If when 300 people are kidnapped, the government really doesn't have any sense of urgency with regards getting these people free and releasing them back to their families. It's heartbreaking, and I spoke about this sometime last week, about how heartbreaking this is. Join us this morning with our phone line. You can also tweet this morning at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts on these issues. If you're from Delta State this morning, let us know, what Okwama is like. And of course, what your thoughts are on these very, very sad incidents. We have more conversations coming your way. And of course, we're going to be moving into talking about the kidnapping, which I just mentioned, and the victims that are still in terrorist den or still being held captive in northern Nigeria. That comes up right next. Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. The Action Aid of Nigeria has raised the alarm over the rising insecurity in the country, which is now directly affecting women and children in the country. The group, while reviewing the current state of women and children in Nigeria, says that this is being catalyzed by the hardship being faced by citizens, which has led to many women, especially in rural communities, losing their businesses. Amading Uyi reports.
With Nigeria's inflation rate currently at 31.70, as stated by the nation's National Bureau of Statistics, the hardship being faced by citizens is at an all-time high. The Action Aid of Nigeria, which has an objective to reduce poverty across the country, says that women are mostly affected as economic and financial difficulties are now affecting their businesses.
Economic downturn has led to setbacks to the gains made by development partners in empowering women across Nigeria, with many women-owned businesses shutting down due to financial difficulties.
While speaking in Abuja during a session to review the challenges women and children face in the country, those present at this meeting say gender inequalities and hardship is rising as all aspects of their lives are now being affected.
You can
up in the morning thinking of what you are going to put in the table for your children to eat. You will be thinking of your children's school fees. You will be thinking of where are you going to start. Abin da gwamnati yake yi muna ba mu ji daɗi a karakarar Najeriya ba. Saboda wahala ya yi yawa muna mu mata. Mu kuma mata mu ne masu sha wahala a gida. Mu ne yara, mu ne gida, in ba mata ba a gida. Komai yanzu ya sauka muna cikin wahala. Komai ya zama sada. Abincin da muka saya da naira 200 za mu ci shi har kwana 2 da yaranmu.
They are calling on government to live up to its responsibilities, saying the current hardship is now increasing insecurity of women and girls, as crime rate is evidently on the rise.
According to a survey carried out by Action Nigeria in some communities to ascertain the weight of the current situation on women and children, most respondents said that the rate of crime, that is killings, stealing, and kidnapping, has increased.
For now, if you are inside your house, you are not secure. In your farm, you are not secure. Everywhere, even as we are here now, we are not secure. So we have to think of that one and know how to think of where are we going.
The Action Aid is also calling on citizens to collaborate through innovative ways to improve the lives of women and children in the country. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And of course, yes, women and children are greatly affected by the different issues, that bother us here in Nigeria and across the continent. And thanks to Action Aid Nigeria for, of course, highlighting that aspect of it. Now, security agencies appear to be overwhelmed with the gale of kidnapping and general insecurity in the country. Despite the federal government's assurance of rescuing the over 250 kidnapped pupils in Kaduna State, there's been no positive news to that effect. 14 people have also been kidnapped by suspected bandits of Dogon Nomaungwan Gamo community in Kajuru, local government area of Kaduna State, barely a week after 61 people were kidnapped in Buddha community, also in Kajuru, local government area. A youth leader in the community, Sani Musa, said the bandits in large numbers had in the early hours of Saturday invaded the community, shooting sporadically, during which they, of course, they abducted 14 people while one of them sustained injuries. News Central's Marvelous Obomano, of course, has continued to bring us reports from Kaduna State while we monitor these reports and these very, very shocking incidents. He, of course, will be joining us to x-ray these issues as we go on with the program this morning. But
absolutely.
Would first of all, talk a little bit more about this. It grew wings mostly in the last 8 years. Initially, yes, I agree that we had a Boko Haram problem from the Obasanjo administration, Yar'Adua. Of course, but it was still just in bits and pieces back then. There was some level of control that I believe the government tried to, exert over it. Goodluck Jonathan's time, of course, it blew out of proportion. It seemed to be, a major challenge during Goodluck Jonathan's time. I'm talking about Boko Haram now. Then the Buhari administration came in and it became, a hydra-headed monster. There was Boko Haram, there was, ISWAP, there was the different groups that were existing in different parts of northern Nigeria. And of course, as those ones that existed, then we saw the emergence of banditry, then unknown gunmen, that of course went across the country, and then kidnapping. The kidnapping obviously didn't start with Buhari's time. You remember there was the Chibok girls, there was Dapchi during Buhari's time, and all of that. But the point is, it has existed for a couple of years now. And one thing that I know I've repeatedly said is, or I've repeatedly questioned is, how have we improved, with regards to our response to kidnapping in Nigeria? How have we improved with our security agencies to tackling kidnapping in Nigeria? In what ways have we acted different? What things have we done different? What strategies have we changed to curb kidnapping in Nigeria? Why, after Chibok happened, Dapchi happened, in 2024, does Nigeria still have situations where 300 people can be kidnapped? Or even 400 people can be kidnapped?
Well,
So
I mean,
we didn't learn anything.
if you try to add the numbers, it's well over that. It's well over 300 and well over 400.
I mean, I'm talking in the last 2 weeks.
I get you.
Or in the last 3 weeks.
I mean, you've forgotten to mention the roughly 200 women that were kidnapped from the IDP camps when they were going to fetch firewood.
Yeah.
These are women that were already displaced because they're running away from insecurity, and they're in these IDP camps, a number of them. It's a very sad reality where we are as a country, where we are as a nation. 10 years ago, we had Chibok girls. We had the kidnap of the Chibok girls that was widely publicized, about 276 of them. And the whole world joined the Bring Back Our Girls movement, right? And between that time and now, it's obvious that not so much has changed. The only difference is, at that time, when we had the Chibok girls that were kidnapped, the ideology then was that girls should not go to school. It was Boko Haram that was trying to frustrate, quote-unquote, Western education. They were saying girls should not go to school. We've seen kidnaps happen over the years, and now it's morphed into bandits. Back then, Boko Haram would claim, they would claim the ownership, or they would claim responsibility for carrying out these attacks. Right now, it's a disconnected system. It's not one coordinated system. It's pockets of bandits in different parts of the nation that have seen kidnapping as a means of business. So it's not, I doubt that there's necessarily any ideology behind their kidnaps. That's one. And it's unfortunate that we're sort of between the devil and the deep blue sea, because they're asking for 1 billion, right? You're asking for 1 billion naira. And then these are kids, and of course, kids are an easy target. Easy targets because they whip up sentiment of Nigerians, they will get more attention, and then you're torn between, should the government negotiate, should the government pay ransom? Whilst you are saying government shouldn't pay ransom to negotiate with terrorists, on the other hand, you're thinking these are the lives of innocent Nigerians, young children who went to school to get an education. So you're wondering, what exactly are the options? If you try to go in with force, these kids will be used as human shield. So it really feels like it's obvious that we're in a very, very difficult position. And if they then come out to pay this money will be used for the procurement of arms. I don't think I don't know if that's an option that they're considering at this point.
Yeah, the government has already said that they will not be negotiating or they will not be paying ransom, even if, yes, that's what, most times will be said. But over time, we've seen that not just in Nigeria, government, goes through the back, to still have these negotiations for the greater good, at least to save face. And they may not, openly negotiate or pay a ransom, but
sometimes there's an exchange of...
I don't know that, we would... I don't know what details, would have to play out for these people to be released. Another thing, that I should mention is, it's unfortunate that we've also gotten to a place where we seem to be numb.
We are numb. Everybody's going ahead with their life.
Exactly. When these incidents happen, especially in northern Nigeria, it's sad. And what I'm saying is, look at the reaction to the incident in Okwama, and then look at the reaction to when soldiers have also been killed in northern Nigeria. These things have happened so many times in those parts, that Nigerians have, gotten numb to it. Forgetting that these people who have been kidnapped are also people's children.
Exactly.
Forgetting that parents, and uncles and siblings will be losing their minds to bring these children back.
I saw a report of one parent who has 5 children. Amongst these 5 out of her 6 children are kidnapped.
It's unfortunate.
It is the reality, unfortunately, of Nigeria, where we are. There's so much that needs to be done regarding our problems with insecurity, and we must continue to ask, what is the value of the Nigerian life? We'll go on a break, and when we come back, it will be which way Nigeria. We're asking more questions, holding the government to account, and talking about the things that need to be spoken about.
On Which Way Nigeria this morning, I'm pointing out the stupidity in bigotry that has become one of the most visible things on Nigerian social media today. Not even if there's some who might argue that, it's always been there, it's not new. The tribalism, of course, bigotry has been there since the days of our forefathers. But the one that we're currently seeing, and the one that has been burning, that is currently very visible, has been burning mostly since the election campaign season in 2023 or 2022, and it's currently the worst that I've ever seen. It's in almost every Twitter thread. It's in almost every comment section on Twitter, Instagram, or on Facebook. Yoruba this, Igbo this, Northerners this or that. It has gotten to the stage where it is now even practiced in our real life experiences. And why is it even more stupid? It's because most of what we see today, with the speed that it has grown in the last 1 year, is all because of Nigeria's last elections and how some people decided that the only way to win is to divide Nigerian voters along tribal lines. Now, the main reason that I call it stupid, and of course I'm referring to all the young people who are fighting and hating the Igbos or hating the Yorubas or the Northerners, calling each other names, threatening to even kill, as we can see, of course, in these tweets that I'll quickly share with you. Look at this person saying that with proper backing, I could be an Awolowo Reagan. And of course, talks about how at least 20% of Yoruba people need to be killed for his plans to thrive. He was, of course, referring to the Yoruba obedience, as they're popularly called. This one here says, facts, murder them, Yoruba obedience. Send those, yeah, they're mostly too despicable, for me to even read. But that's the level of bigotry and tribalism, that has emerged post the election season. And so this is the question that I want to ask of these young Nigerians that are being, swept away by tribalism and bigotry and hatred for one tribe or the other. So you mean to tell me that politicians around Nigeria, you have allowed politicians that don't give you water, they don't give you electricity, they don't give you healthcare, they don't give you security, they don't even give you gutters. Look across Lagos. You've allowed these politicians to turn you into bitter tribal bigots just so they can win elections. So a politician that didn't give you electricity, you are a a bigot for him. He didn't give you health care to take care of your parents at their old age, but you hate the other tribe for that politician. He didn't give your elderly parents their pensions, but you are a full-fledged tribal bigot for that politician or for that political party. You will mark present when it's time to insult the other tribes on his behalf. You would have a massive erection when there's opportunities to fight and call the other tribe names on behalf of your favorite politician or political party. That same politician or party that has not improved any aspect of your life, you are a bigot because you want him to win his election. You insult and hate your brother, your sister, your fellow Nigerian, your classmate who's from another tribe just because of a politician who couldn't even fix your gutters, couldn't give you clean water. Igbos are these. Look across social media. Yorubas are that. Northerners are all this and that because of a political party that couldn't give you an ambulance. If you fall sick or if you collapse right now at the office, there's no ambulance coming to pick you. I can assure you that. Because of course, the failure of these politicians that you are being a bigot for. A bigot for a politician who you may never meet in your life. You insult and hate that other tribe because that politician who won't even speak on your behalf when you are kidnapped because he wants to win elections, you have become a bigot for him. It's a shame. It's a pity, and I hope that you take some moments to look around you. Look at the quality of life that you're currently living because those politicians failed you. Till date, you don't have electricity. You don't have water. You don't have security, jobs, healthcare. You don't have good roads. You have absolutely nothing positive. But of course, your anger is not to the people who failed you, but instead to the other tribe. I hope this morning you realize that no matter how much of a fan you are, no matter how much you fan the flames of bigotry, it won't improve your standard of living. And no politician on earth is worth you hating another tribe for. Good morning.
Very pertinent questions asked there by Osaoge. Food for thought, and I'm hoping that you will go back and think about it and share it as far and as wide as possible. Remember that we put out our content at News Central TV on all social media platforms, and we hope that you help in spreading the word. We want to say a very big thank you to everyone who's joined us, our guests who joined us virtually, and to those who, of course, joined us online. Thank you for joining us on today's broadcast here at Breakfast Central. We hope to be back again tomorrow with maybe better news regarding the kidnapped students and to see some bright light. We'll be back again, same time. My name is Olive Emodi.
And I'm Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.
Have a good day.